and going to continue to be, and we're very grateful for that. Now I'll toss that initial question back to Senator Gravel.
Senator, you being a politician, obviously, if you recall the question, what do you think we will benefit, which again is a given, but because you've been a politician, you know other politicians who have become rich and are among the wealthy. What do you see them losing because you were in the position to see them gain?
Well, I don't see them truly losing anything. You know, it's in the eyes of the beholder. What I see is it's a plus all the way around. First off, we have too many secrets. 90% of what the government holds secret should not be held secret. We need secrecy for order of battle, that kind of activity, but and probably some conversations in negotiations. But beyond that, the people should be made aware of whatever the government knows. And that, of course, is the strength and the source of democracy. You can't have a democracy if the people are ill-informed and uninformed and manipulated by the political society to specific lock-in goals. And so I would hope that one of the benefits that would accrue from this effort by Steve to go to the Congress, try to open as many eyes and minds as we possibly can, and see what happens as a result of that. That's going to be beneficial to the Congress. It could be beneficial to the American people, and will certainly be beneficial to advancement of technology from what will be revealed.
The presidential election is pretty much the power of the people. We got a chance every 4 years to basically vote for somebody that represents the people. And then when this happens and somebody's elected president, you see it all the time. The president's elected, they have all these agendas, but then they go into the national security briefing. Then they come out, and the public, and they look like they're kind of a deer in the headlights. And you see this fear that they've changed overnight after they've been debriefed. What do you think of a possible, it's 2 years down the line, the new election's coming around the corner, people are already setting up to do their campaigns. What about somebody going out there and saying, hey, look, I'm about free energy, I'm about getting the secrets out to the public in regards to free energy, we're going to open up Area 51 or whatever secret base is out there that's kind of running the game with the technology, and I'm going to find out what's going on and give it to the people. Is this guy going to get locked out, or does this guy have a chance?
Well, yeah, he sure as hell will get locked out. I think you start with the theory that, we elect people to office that can do what they want. Far from it. The person that wins the presidential election is already controlled by what I call Wall Street, by the military-industrial complex, by the various special interest groups. And so that person doesn't rise to that office without understanding the conduct that person must continue to exercise. So what would happen when people say, well, Gravel, we wish you'd got elected president? Well, hell, I wouldn't have. It would have been a disaster for the very simple reason that the Congress is off in another direction. They're controlled by special interests, whether they be special interest in the Middle East or special interests on Wall Street. They're controlled by it. And so Obama, who manipulated the election to make it sound like he represented change, really was not representing change, and he demonstrated that the moment he acquired office. The same thing occurred with Clinton. He represented hope, and there was no hope realized in his presidency. The problem is that we're structured in such a way that the people have no participation in the governing process. All they can do is give their power away on election day. They have the power for a few seconds when they vote for members of Congress, senators, and the president. Well, that's not nearly enough. What the people need is to participate in government through the process of making laws. Lawmaking is the central power of government, and as we've heard from Marcus Cicero more than 2,000 years ago, is that freedom is participation in power. Well, if the people want to participate in power, they have to become lawmakers, forgetting that they're going to get the power from a person they elect as president or a member of Congress. I'm particularly fond of Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. She has a spontaneity and a grasp of the issues that I think is phenomenal. Could she get elected president? I would hope. In my fantasy, I would hope that she could. But what could she do with a Congress as recalcitrant as we have today? Probably very little. But then she would have the courage to face up to it, and maybe that would be revealing to the body politic.
3 U.S. presidents have talked about disclosure. First, Carter. He saw something, but when he became president, all of a sudden what the UFO report he filed was no longer such a big issue. It was just something he saw in the sky. Reagan, 2 credible sightings. Disclosure comes. He makes on a world stage 2 references that if we were attacked by and invaded, wouldn't we all come together as humans and forget the little differences we had? Bush, when he was on his campaign trail, Bush W., was asked by, I believe, a ufologist or a UFO enthusiast, said, Governor, if you become president, will you please end this disclosure or to end the secrecy on UFOs? And he said, yes, of course. Obviously, nothing happened. Recently, Podesta raised 5 reasons why he won't work with the Obama administration, according to you, Mr. Bassett, which you told just the listeners a couple months back in the New York Times. And one of them was because of the UFO secrecy. What can you tell us about that, Bassett? And then again, you, Senator, with regards to what has failed in the politics with these 3 presidents I just mentioned. And just to warn you, we have a few minutes before break.
Okay, let me defer to Steve.
Yeah, let me clarify here. Look, in terms, there has been interaction between presidents in this issue. And the number one source of information on that is presidentialufo.com. This is the work of Grant Cameron. Extremely important website, presidentialufo.com. And you will learn that whether it's Kennedy, Carter, both Bushes, and Clinton, definitely Clinton, there have been intersections with this issue. Disclosure, no, not at all, but comments. And in fact, direct engagement, as in the case of Clinton. And yet, disclosure, meaning the announcement that the ETs are in fact here, we're not alone, has not happened. With respect to Podesta, that was an article in the New York Times in which the writer was saying, here's 5 reasons why President Obama might not want to bring Podesta into the White House, because Podesta has taken some positions which could be problematic. But of course, Obama did bring him into the White House, and John Podesta has called for the release of all UFO files several times, and he was aware of the ET issue. What I have learned in my time, and my Senator Gravel certainly understands this, believe me, there are plenty of people on the Hill that know that ETs are real. There are plenty of people there are people within the White House that know the ETs are real. But they're not being briefed. They've been cut out of the loop by the military intelligence complex, possibly because the military intelligence people are pretty serious dudes, mostly dudes, some women, obviously, and they're very upset about politics. They're looking up from their underground facilities and their secret world, and they're seeing a Congress that's turned into a circus, a joke. They're seeing extremely weak presidents that really can't get anything done. And I think that they may be concerned. They're like, gee, we don't want them to really have much access or any access to this extraordinary development that we have been dealing with for 50, 60 years. I can sort of relate. I mean, I can get the point. But unfortunately, that can't go on because what we need to do is not to continue down that path, but we need to solve some of the dysfunctions that are within our body politic right now that have corrupted a representative democracy and the concepts that we had laid down years ago, and it's essentially creating enormous amounts of problem. We need reform, in other words. Now, when reform will come, I don't know, but disclosure of the ET presence could come at any time. And it's my view that this paradigm change, this extraordinary event, may open the door for us to really take a hard look at what's gone on in the last 60 years and reform the institutions to the extent needed so that the American people can once again have much more influence on governance, that the Congress will have oversight over the programs that should definitely have oversight. So same for the president, and also have a president that is much stronger and less shackled by some of these dysfunctional issues. A big order. Disclosure itself of ET presidents is a very simple thing. I can assure you, reforming and restructuring the institutions that have been corrupted over the last 60 years because of the various historical processes underway is going to be much more difficult in a way. Yet I know that Senator Gravel is more than happy to participate in that, as are many others. And so, but first we need to get this truth out, this fundamental, incredible truth out to the world.
We do have a question, actually, from a listener that I received here, is from Steve from Ohio. This is, okay, Eisenhower, during his closing statement, he gave a warning: beware of military-industrial complex. Was he cut out of the loop after his ET meeting at Edwards Air Force Base in 1954, and then cut out of the loop in 61, I presume, when he was out?
Well, I'm sure he was cut out when he was out, but but you got to keep in mind that Eisenhower was able to define the problem very accurately because he was part of the problem when he was president. In other words, we built up our whole nuclear capability under his presidency because it was a cheap way to have defense. But it was a horrible policy decision, and of course he and his Secretary of State John Foster Dulles, invaded a number of countries at their own initiative to try and bring about regime change where we thought it was necessary to do. So Eisenhower comes off good because of his statement, but he doesn't come off very well because of his conduct of his presidential office. But here again, we have to acknowledge that no president since Eisenhower has even acknowledged the problem. And so you can't solve the problem if you don't even know it exists. And that's the status of what we're involved with right now.
Senator Gravel, let me ask you this. Are basically all presidential elections rigged and the outcome is already known before the vote?
No question about it. It's rigged in this way, is that no person could get elected president if he did not adhere to the capitalist concepts that are promulgated by Wall Street. And when I say Wall Street, I mean the global capitalist community, the global marketplace. If you don't buy into that, you're never going to be president. And keep in mind, it takes money to become president. Just look at Obama. When he raised almost $1 billion to become president, well, you have to ask, well, why would people spend that kind of money investing in Obama if they thought that he might be at variance from the political beliefs that they held? He was not at variance. He was their puppet from the get-go, and his presidency has proven that.
When you went for president, were you under the impression that you didn't have a chance, or did you think you might be able to change the establishment?
No, I knew I didn't have a chance, but what I felt was that if I could raise the issue of direct democracy, where people could participate in government as lawmakers, not just as aficionados, and transferring their power to elected officials, that they could participate. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. The media did not focus on what I was trying to say, but they focused on the issues, and I got trapped into speaking to those issues and pointing out that there's going to be no change with Obama, there was no change with the last presidential group, and there's not going to be in the future. And until we find a way, and of course, people can find that on my website, ncid.us, you'll find that the people can do it directly themselves and not rely upon representative government, where I think nothing will change.
You know, I know you're running out of time. I just wanted to get this last one in. Basically, if you had a second chance with what you know now, what would you have said during those debates with that primetime opportunity?
I would repeat it over and over again that the power is with the people. There's only two venues for change: the government, wherein lies the problem, and the people. But the people don't have the tools to bring about change. That tool is lawmaking. And we have it in some states at the state level, but we need to have it nationally for all the people to participate in power, as was so articulated by Marcus Cicero 2,000 years ago.
Senator Mr. Bassett, I have one more message caller for you. It's actually a voice message caller that just came in. I'm going to play it for you right now.
I'm talking tonight on the radio would address the issue of if abductees like myself have had exposure to EGs, are we enemies of the state, and do we risk being thrown into military prisons for our exposure to the extraterrestrials? Thank you.
The answer to that is no. You won't be drawn into that. What would happen is this is where knowledge does bring about a fundamental paradigm change. And so if people were to stand up and press hard on the elected officials to release information about the extraterrestrial issues facing the globe, that would be beneficial. I don't think at this point it would trigger an onslaught of what would be possible, of what the government did with the All right. Thank you very much for having